Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm at Steve's and I'm working on his TD5-90 again. Today we're going to service it. A little quick service guide for you. So we've got Steve's finest washing up bowl. We've got the Defender up on some ramps. First thing we're going to do, having just been for a little drive, dive underneath and drain the oil. Then we'll move on to the filters and give the thing a good old check over. So without further ado, let's get started. You join me under the Defender where we're looking at the sump. 17mm on the socket, get it on that sump bung and then break it loose. Yeah. God, who did this up last time? I'm back with a longer bar, so now we're actually going to loosen the sump bung. Hopefully. There we go. All right, that's loose. Now the key is, I like to get the socket on a short extension, wind it out and keep pressure upwards to stop the oil spilling forth, and then once she's started to come out, quickly whip it out of the way like that to minimise mess. 6.5 litres ish, well between 6 and 6.5 in the sump, so let that drain out. While that's doing that, we'll take care of the prop shafts. So while the oil's draining, perfect opportunity to take care of your prop shafts. These are often overlooked on service, and if they run dry of grease, the joints wear out very quickly. So on your prop shaft, you've got a sliding joint here, which has a grease nipple. You want to pump that full of grease until you just see it starting to swell the rubber boot. You also have, on each prop shaft universal joint, a grease nipple normally between the two yokes. On TDCI models, it's in the center of the joint and it's angled outwards. So get yourself a grease gun with some decent grease, get it on that slider, and then, as I say, pump it until you see grease start to swell the boot out. That didn't take very much. And then on the joints here, get it on there, and you should feel it start to cause resistance as it fills up with grease. Oh, popped off there. As it fills, and then there you go. Sometimes you can hear it crack past the rubber seals, but no need to overdo it. Just make sure they're fully lubricated. So a UJ at each end of the prop and a slider on each. Job's a good one. Thankfully, my technician friends come to give me a hand, but the oil's almost done draining, but we'll take the time while that finishes up just to check the tyres over. So start by checking the pressures. On a 90, it should be 28 front, 38 rear. That's what it says in the workshop manual anyway. Obviously, everyone's got their own ideas of tyre pressures, but helps if you turn it on first, it turns out. 31, so a little bit high, but not the end of the world for a lot of road work. We'll just adjust that, go around the rest of them, and also check the tread for uneven wear, any cuts, anything like that. Just give the tyres a good old once over and check the tread depths. So that rear was down to 28.5, which isn't drastic, but it does go to show that you should check your tyre pressures more often than you probably do. This may have a slow puncture, so we need to top it back up, keep an eye on it. So while you're underneath, it's a great opportunity to check the oil levels in both your axles, your transfer box and your gearbox. Obviously, we've got this up on a ramp at the front, so the level's not going to be 100% indicative. You want to do it on flat ground, but it's a simple enough job to do. And again, something which you should keep an eye on, especially if you've got the usual Land Rover weeps and leaks and things like that. Yeah, so even though we're up on a ramp and all the oils run to the back, there's still plenty in there and it's nice and clean. Right, so the oil, we're almost there. It's just dripping now. While you're underneath the Land Rover, there's the perfect opportunity to check for leaks. So for instance, this swivel has a bit of a weep down here. The swivel ball itself looks fine, but that seal will probably want replacing fairly soon. So get yourself a bit of paper or write it in your phone. Just note anything that you find, and then further down the line you can address it. But before that, we need to put the sump bung back in. And for that, we've got a new washer, which comes in the Brit Part service kit. So, get rid of the old one, put the new one on. We'll wind that back into the sump, nip it up, torque it to spec, and then we're going to get the Land Rover off the ramps. Obviously, we're not going to start the engine because that would be very bad. Change the filters, put fresh oil in, and carry on. So now, before we move on to anything else, we're going to get new oil filters in place and refill the engine with oil, just so we don't have any lapses and forget and then cause damage. So 2 oil filters on a TD5, centrifugal oil filter, which is what you should change every year, and a full flow oil filter, which you should change every 2 years. Both come in the kit, so we're going to replace both. We're going to start with the centrifugal filter, which looks like this. It lives under this little cap, which is held down with 2 10mm headed bolts. So we're going to get a ratchet and a long extension and undo those. And then it's a simple case, lifting the cap off, pulling the filter out, change the O-ring, put it all back together. Now, I've taken this out and I've noticed that it has 2 different bolts in. The reason for that is it's really common for the threads that these bolts go into to pull out of the oil filter housing, and it's quite a big job to replace the full housing. So what a lot of people do is fit a slightly longer bolt so you've got a fresh thread to bite into. These are often over tightened, they literally need to be nipped up, so bear that in mind when you're putting it back together. For now though, got this O-ring to change there, and the oil filter just slides off the spindle and dispose of it responsibly. So, new filter, drop it onto the spindle, give it a spin, make sure it runs smoothly, all good. Then take the cap, get your new O-ring, fit said O-ring like that, give it a little smear of oil, and then drop it into place. And again, when you're tightening these bolts up, just be careful not to go too mad. So while I was under here doing that oil filter, I noticed there's a little bit of crystallised coolant on this heater hose here, and the coolant level is down slightly. It's not drastic, but it is below minimum. Whenever you see like pinky orange crystallised coolant, that means you have got a very slow leak, and then the water element of the coolant is evaporating and leaving the antifreeze. So yeah, it might just be that that hose clip needs tightening up, but it's something we should look at. Next up, it is the turn of the air filter, which lives in this airbox. It's a lot easier to take this intake pipe off the airbox and then unclip the lid, as you're not sort of wrestling it. So we're going to do that, pull the old element out, make sure the new one is seated properly, put the lid back on and refit the pipe. Easy. Just like that. Any debris in the airbox, take a few minutes, just clean any leaves and things like that out. Okay, so when you fit the new filter, get it into the box, and then you want to make sure that this outer seal is seated correctly all the way around. You don't want it to fall too far into the box, but you don't want any bits sticking up either, otherwise the lid won't go on. When the lid goes on, you must make sure that the back 2 sort of tangs go into these 2 holders, because if you don't, it will clamp unevenly and you'll get air leaks. That's it. Just like that. Once you've got these 2 clips latched over, you can just put your hand down the back and make sure that the gap is the same all the way across. It should be a very, very small gap between the top lid and the air filter base. That's all good. So we can plug the temperature sensor back in, the vacuum pipe, plug the mass airflow sensor back in, and finally refit the intake pipe. So in the Britpart service kit, if you spec it with oil, you get 7 litres of Britpart's own 530 multigrade, which is perfect for this Td5 engine. So, flip the cover off, undo the oil cap, and I'll see how much I can spill down Steve's engine. You'll have to excuse me, I actually misspoke in that last clip. You do get 8 litres of oil. The official filling capacity for the Td5 is 7.2 litres. So what I would recommend you do is put 7 litres in, run the engine, let it settle, dip it with a dipstick, and then adjust the level if you need to. That's number 7. So we can spin the oil cap back on, start her up, and adjust it if needed. So while we're waiting for that oil level to settle before we check it, I'm going to top up the other levels in the engine bay, starting with the screen wash. Little tip for you, if you want to save a few quid, get the concentrated stuff and mix it yourself. But fill this up and then we'll check the power steering. Look at that pour. Right, so next up we're going to check the power steering fluid, which on the Td5 is right at the front of the engine bay. So, undo the cap, and it's got this convenient built-in dipstick. And we're bang on maximum, which is good. Give that a little clean, just recheck it. Spin the cap down, bring it back up. Okay, so we're just below maximum, but there's no need to mess around with that. Next up, brake fluid. Now, we changed all the brakes on this last year, including the lines, and bled it up. So I wouldn't expect this to be too low, and it isn't. It's, again, just below the maximum. We might put a little dribble in there just to bring it back up to the top, but nothing to be of concern about there either. Right, so the last fluid we need to check is the coolant, and as Steve has already said, he was a little bit concerned because it has lost a tiny amount since last year. Obviously we did see that that pipe's got a bit of crystallisation around it, but we're going to top it up to the maximum, and we're also going to replace the cap, just as a matter of course, because they are known to leak from there slightly, although I can't see any going past that. But not the worst idea on a car if you don't know how old the cap is. So back up to maximum nearly, a drip more. This antifreeze, by the way, is the type that can be added to any type of existing coolant. So don't worry that it doesn't look orange. It won't do this any harm at all. So that's at the maximum. New Britpart cap. There we go. Now we'll just keep an eye on that over the next year. Right, so the oil's had plenty of time to settle now. We can check the level and adjust it if we need to. I don't think we'll be too far off. So, wipe the dipstick off, put it back in, and let's see where we are. So, I don't know if you can see that, we're just above minimum on the stick. So basically we just need to add a little bit more oil at a time till we get to just below the maximum, ideally. So we're done under the bonnet now. Before you close it though, just spend a couple of minutes going over all the connections and all the hoses. Just check for leaks. Have a look at the wiring harnesses, check for hardness, any chafing or corrosion. And yeah, it just helps keep everything in top condition. But we've been over this, everything looks good. So now we can move on to the fuel filter. Okay, so the fuel filter on a Td5 Defender lives in the offside rear wheel arch. You can do it with the wheel on, but because we want to take this tyre off and have that puncture investigated, we're going to swap this with the spare. If you're servicing at home and you're unsure when your Land Rover last had brakes, it's well worth taking each wheel off in turn, inspecting the brakes, having a look at ball joints, bushes, things like that. But again, we're kind of in a rush now because the day's getting on, and we know that this Land Rover was completely gone through recently. So we're going to jack this up, get this wheel off, change the fuel filter and then fit the spare. And we already cracked these wheel nuts off with a breaker bar, so we're just loosening them off now. And as always, if you're working on a Land Rover that's jacked up, always put an axle stand underneath as well. Okay, so the fuel filter lurks behind this cover, which is held in place with a turn screw. So, pair of pliers, undo the screw. And the cover is located on two little pins at the back, there and there. Remove the cover and behold the fuel filter. Now, before you remove the filter, you're going to want to put a bucket or something underneath because it will lose a little bit of diesel. Land Rover were really thinking when they thought, you know, we're going to put the fuel filter in the wheel arch because the filter won't get damaged at all or covered in mud or corroded or anything like that. It was an absolute stroke of genius on their part. So, thankfully, this filter is coming loose. If you've got one that's really stuck, a big pair of grips or a filter chain is what you need to loosen it off. So that's why we need a bucket. Remove the filter. Wince as you drop about 16 quid's worth of diesel into the bucket. Discard. Get your new one. Now, really, really important to make sure that neither the outer seal or the inner seal are still on this housing, because if they are, you'll have a really, really severe diesel leak. So we're all good. Put a smear of fresh diesel on the rubber O-rings on the new filter and simply wind it into place. These don't have to be mega tight, just hand pressure is fine. Give it a clean up, and then we're going to refit the cover and we'll show you how to bleed it up. Before we refit the fuel filter cover, we're going to bleed the system. Land Rover made really, really easy on the Td5. All you have to do, flick the ignition on, and you'll notice on your warning light panel, you'll only have a couple of lights, but go down to the throttle, pump the pedal 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and your EML light, sorry, your engine management light will start flashing. And you'll also hear the in-tank pump running. Basically, that will purge all the air out of the system so that the engine is ready to start. And we'll just keep an eye on that filter, make sure we've got no leaks before the cover goes back on. Right, so we've got fresh oil, we've checked all the driveline, we've got new filters throughout. Just little jobs to finish up with really, like checking the wiper blades are in good condition and also giving all the hinges and check straps a little bit of lubrication just to help them last a bit longer. So yeah, we're going to wrap up here Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Follow us on our socials and, of course, buy Land Rover Monthly magazine. Yeah, join us next time for another how-to guide or see what else we're up to. Catch you on the next one.